staying on top of how universities are marketing themselves online these days. Well, it feels like trying to catch smoke, doesn't it?
It really does. You're just swimming in data, new platforms all the time.
Uh-huh. It's a real challenge to figure out what's actually, moving the needle.
Absolutely. Cutting through that noise, that digital clutter to find what really works is key.
Which is exactly why we're doing this deep dive today. We're taking a really focused look at how universities can use social media and, get this, even machine learning to seriously boost their marketing efforts.
Yeah, specifically looking at predicting user engagement with images on Facebook posts. That's the core focus.
Right. And our source material for this is the book Advancing Higher Education Marketing Through Social Media and Machine Learning by Poturak, Obucic, and Keco.
A very detailed piece of research.
So our mission, if you will, is to pull out some really practical strategies, maybe uncover a few surprising findings from their work, stuff that can help anyone listening understand what actually grabs people's attention.
And it's grounded in real data, too. It's not just theory. They analyzed, what, 1,200 images?
Exactly. 1,200 images from 24 top universities across the US, the UK, and Australia. And they used machine learning to spot the patterns.
So a pretty robust data set.
Definitely. Okay, so let's maybe start with the big picture. How has social media really changed the landscape for universities?
Well, the book really hammers home that it's fundamental now for higher education institutions, or HEIs. It's gone way beyond just, social connection.
Right.
It's become a key tool for teaching, for collaboration between researchers, and just general communication within the whole academic community.
It's not just about posting nice campus pictures anymore, is it?
Not at all. The authors highlight the main players universities use. Facebook, obviously, for broad engagement. LinkedIn for that professional networking, alumni connections. Twitter, or X, as we should call it now, for the real-time info, the quick updates. And Instagram, of course, for the visual storytelling.
And it's interesting how these platforms themselves have changed. The shift to mobile is huge.
Oh, definitely. And this idea of platforms like Facebook becoming almost like infrastructure, they underpin so much online activity.
Totally. And the impact. You think about building those connections, fostering loyalty, which for a university means engaged alumni, a strong reputation.
And even driving those first steps towards enrollment, absolutely. Social media plays a big role there.
Yeah, and the book mentions how vital it became during the pandemic, right, as an actual teaching tool.
Exactly. It stepped in as a crucial instructional technology when face-to-face wasn't an option for many, really highlighted its importance.
Okay, so let's zoom in a bit on Facebook. It's still such a massive platform for reaching people. What did the research find works well there for universities?
Well, with, 2.8 billion active users, the potential reach is just enormous.
Yeah.
And its targeting capabilities are pretty sophisticated.
So you can really pinpoint who you want to talk to.
Precisely. The book looks at both organic, so non-paid stuff, and the paid strategies.
Okay, let's break that down. Organic first. How do universities win without opening the wallet for ads?
Organic success really comes down to creating content that people actually want to see and interact with. Posts that get likes, shares, comments. That's what boosts visibility naturally.
Makes sense. Engagement breeds more engagement.
Exactly. And they also stress the power of user-generated content, getting students, staff, alumni to share their own authentic experiences. That builds incredible trust.
Yeah, hearing it from peers is always more powerful, isn't it?
Definitely. And it reaches networks you wouldn't otherwise tap into organically. Another key thing is building community, specifically through Facebook groups.
Like groups for specific courses or campus activities.
Precisely. The research found those subject-specific groups can really make prospective students feel connected, almost like they're already part of things.
That's a great insight.
Of course, underlying all this is just consistently putting out good, relevant stuff posts, videos, articles, and actually talking with people in the comments and messages, keeping that presence active.
Right, it's not just broadcast, it's conversation.
Yeah.
Okay, so valuable content, building community. Now let's flip to paid Facebook marketing, sponsored posts. What are the advantages there?
Well, the big one is reach. Paid ads let universities talk to people well beyond their current followers. And the targeting, as we mentioned.
You can get super specific.
You really can. Demographics, interests, location, even targeting alumni in specific industries. It makes marketing spend much more efficient, potentially lowering overall costs because you're not wasting impressions.
And you can track the return on investment, right?
Yeah.
See what's actually working.
Exactly. That measurability is huge. But the book emphasizes it's usually not in either situation. The best approach is often a mix,
How so?
using paid promotion to boost your really strong organic content while still maintaining that consistent organic presence to engage everyone. Interestingly, they found those subject-specific Facebook groups we talked about.
Yeah.
They can actually lead to a measurable rise in conversion rates for prospective applicants. So there's a direct link there sometimes.
Wow, that's a really concrete connection between community building and recruitment. Okay, so Facebook is obviously key, but it's just one platform. What about LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram? Any key takeaways for HEIs there?
Definitely. For LinkedIn, the focus is squarely on professional networking. So it's ideal for connecting with businesses, potential partners, engaging alumni in their career paths.
And recruitment, I guess, for staff and faculty.
Absolutely, both for students looking at careers and for hiring staff. The book also points out it's not just the university's main page. Personal profiles of employees, faculty, leadership, they're really important for credibility and reach on LinkedIn.
Right, leveraging the whole network.
Yeah.
Okay, what about the fast pace of Twitter or X?
X is really valuable for that real-time information sharing. Quick news, campus updates, event reminders, interacting directly with current students.
The more immediate conversational.
Yes, and it can also boost academic communication, help researchers connect, faculty share insights. The research noted that things like mentioning cultural events, having a bit of a human touch in tweets can increase engagement. They even mentioned, interestingly, that using emojis might actually positively impact user interaction sometimes.
Emojis in university communications. Times are changing. Okay. And Instagram, the visual powerhouse.
Instagram's all about the visuals, obviously. Perfect for showcasing campus life, student activities, research breakthroughs, achievements, all through compelling images and video.
So telling the university story visually.
Exactly. And strategic content creation there is crucial for driving engagement. Good visuals really can strengthen the university's brand equity and make students feel more involved. The research actually suggested Instagram might be the most effective platform for boosting engagement if the visual content is planned well.
Interesting. So different platforms, different strengths, needing different approaches, which kind of leads to the bigger picture, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Developing an overall social media strategy, creating the right content.
Absolutely. The book is very clear. Social media isn't just nice to have for universities anymore. It's a vital marketing tool.
For what specifically?
Yeah.
Promoting programs.
Promoting programs, definitely. Building a competitive edge, improving admissions processes, and fostering that crucial engagement with students, alumni, and the wider community.
So it's not just random posting. You need a plan.
You absolutely need a plan. Choosing the right platforms has to align with the university's strategic goals and the content itself. It needs to be tailored.
Tailored how?
To the specific audience you're trying to reach, their needs, their interests, how they behave online on that particular platform. And social media advertising plays a big role here too.
Especially with things like AI coming in.
Exactly. Using AI and machine learning for better segmentation, personalization, that can really influence how potential students perceive a university's value and whether they ultimately choose to apply.
Okay, that's the perfect segue. Machine learning. This is where it gets really interesting, maybe a bit intimidating for some. Can you break it down for us? What is it, basically?
Sure. Think of machine learning simply as a way computers learn from data. Instead of programming every single rule, you give them lots of examples, and they figure out the patterns themselves. It's a subset of artificial intelligence.
Okay, learning from examples. Makes sense.
The book mentions three main types: supervised, unsupervised, and reinforcement learning. This particular study focused on supervised learning.
Supervised. So the computer gets examples that are already labeled, like this image got high engagement, this one didn't.
That's a great way to think about it, yes. And a critical step in making these models work well is something called feature selection.
Feature selection.
Yeah, imagine you've got this massive pile of data, like trying to analyze sand on a beach. Feature selection is like filtering out all the irrelevant grains, the noise, so you can focus on the bits that actually matter for prediction. Identifying and sometimes removing redundant or irrelevant data points.
Ah, okay. So you're telling the machine what aspects of the data to pay attention to.
Sort of. It's often about using techniques to let the machine itself figure out which features are most predictive. In this research, they used the Google Cloud Vision API quite heavily.
Oh, right. What did that do?
It automatically analyzed the Facebook images and extracted a whole load of potential features.
Like what kind of things?
Things like, what objects are in the image? Are there faces? What are the dominant colors? Text detected? That kind of thing. They ended up with 48 specific features for their analysis.
48 features per image. Wow.
Yeah, pulled not just from the API, but also informed by principles from photography and graphic design literature. Things like composition rules, color theory.
Okay, so they gather all this data, all these features, then what? How does the machine learning part actually work?
Well, the book describes a 6-step process for their supervised learning model. They use specific software, Weka, which is pretty common for this kind of analysis. And within that, they used 4 different types of algorithms called classifiers to try and predict engagement. Think of them as different statistical methods for finding patterns. They used random forest, SMO, naive Bayes, and J48.
Those are just different ways the computer tries to learn the patterns.
Essentially, yes. Different approaches to analyzing the feature data and predicting the outcome, in this case, user engagement.
And didn't they do this individually for each university? Like mini case studies?
Exactly right. They ran 24 separate analyses, one for each university. This allowed them to see if the patterns held up differently for, say, a U.S. university versus a U.K. one. They used specific techniques in Weka and something called tenfold cross-validation.
Which is just a way to check if the results are reliable.
Precisely. It helps ensure the model isn't just memorizing the data it was trained on, but can actually make accurate predictions on new data.
Okay, so after all that heavy lifting, the data collection, the feature extraction, running these complex models, what do they actually find? What kinds of features consistently popped up as being important for predicting engagement across these universities?
Yeah, that's the really interesting part. 3 main clusters of features really stood out across the different mini case studies.
Okay, what's the first one?
Dominant colors. The analysis suggested that the colors used in an image really matter, specifically using colors strongly associated with the institution itself, or just using a cohesive, well-thought-out color scheme.
So like university brand colors.
Exactly, or colors tied to a specific campaign or even the season. They mentioned examples like Columbia using seasonal colors, while Oxford seemed to use its core colors strategically to build trust and brand consistency. The idea is that colors can evoke specific emotions or associations.
Right, it's like subtle visual branding influencing how people feel about the post. Okay, what was the second cluster?
Dominant emotions depicted in the images. This was fascinating. Images that conveyed feelings of joy and, interestingly, surprise tended to correlate with higher engagement.
Joy and surprise.
For example, the analysis suggests for the University of Pennsylvania, focusing on visuals evoking joy or surprise could be beneficial. For Cornell, it was more about surprise and maybe inspiration.
Interesting. Does that hold true everywhere?
Actually, no. This was one of the key cross-cultural findings. While joy seemed positive in the UK and Australian university data, it actually had a slightly negative correlation in the US data.
Really? That's unexpected. People in the U.S. don't like seeing joy in university posts.
Well, the data suggested it wasn't as strong a positive driver as elsewhere. Maybe expectations are different or other factors override it. Surprise, however, seemed more universally positive.
Huh. Okay, that's a really interesting nuance. What was the third key feature cluster?
Dominant objects present in the images. Basically what people could clearly see and recognize.
Like campus buildings.
Exactly. Recognizable campus landmarks, the university logo, specific branded items. Things that are clearly relevant to the institution. The suggestion for Princeton, for instance, was to focus on familiar campus sites and branded gear. For the University of Queensland, showcasing its iconic buildings.
Makes sense. Reinforce the identity. Any surprises there?
Another interesting cross-country difference emerged with logos. Logos seemed to decrease engagement slightly for U.S. and Australian universities in the study.
Really? Why would that be?
Maybe seen as too overtly marketing, hard to say for sure, but for the UK universities, logos actually seem to have a positive impact on engagement.
Wow, okay. So context really matters there too. So pulling back a bit, when they compare the findings across the US, UK, and Australia, what were the big overall trends or differences?
Well, some things were pretty universal. The importance of just good visual quality, clear images, good composition that mattered everywhere.
Okay, basics first.
Right. Also, color images were consistently preferred over black and white across the board. And that element of surprise or novelty we mentioned, that seemed to have a positive impact generally.
So high quality, maybe something a little unexpected. Those seem like safe bets anywhere.
Largely, yes. But then you have those intriguing differences we touched on. The varying impact of logos positive in the UK, maybe less so elsewhere. The different effect of joy in images depending on the country. And another specific one they found was about headwear.
Headwear. Like hats.
Yeah. Images featuring people wearing hats tended to get more engagement in the Australian and US data, but less engagement in the UK data.
That is incredibly specific. Any idea why?
The research doesn't speculate too much on the why for that one, but it highlights the main point. Cultural context really does seem to shape how people perceive and react to even small details in images.
That's a massive takeaway for any university trying to reach an international audience, isn't it? You can't just assume one visual approach works everywhere.
Absolutely not. You need to be aware of these potential nuances.
Okay, so given all this fascinating data, the importance of color, emotion, objects, these cultural differences, what are the practical applications? What should universities actually do with this information to make their social media better?
The research points to several concrete actions. First, be more strategic about content creation. Use these insights about preferred colors, the impact of joy or surprise, and which objects resonate to inform the kinds of images you choose.
So, less guesswork, more data-driven visuals.
Exactly. Second, consider using machine learning tools, maybe simpler versions than this research, to predict potential engagement for different image options before you even post them, or to help optimize social media ad spend.
Right, using prediction to place your bets better.
Third, double down on the basics. High-quality visuals are non-negotiable. And maintain consistent branding, but be smart about how you use elements like logos, considering that cultural context.
Makes sense. Quality, consistency with intelligence. What else?
Tailoring content is key. Acknowledge both the universal preferences like visual clarity, but also adapt to those country-specific or audience-specific nuances regarding things like emotion or specific objects.
So segmenting your visual strategy, perhaps.
Potentially, yes, or at least being very mindful when targeting different regions, and of course, A/B testing. Always be testing different visual approaches to see what actually works best for your specific audience in real time.
You can't beat real-world data.
Never. The book really argues for a hybrid approach. Combines solid marketing theory and intuition with the power that machine learning offers for analysis and prediction.
It's not replacing marketers, it's giving them better tools.
Precisely. And importantly, they also touch on the ethical side, being mindful of data privacy, avoiding bias in algorithms. That's crucial as these tools become more powerful.
A really important point. Now, looking beyond just the marketing department, does this kind of analysis hint at wider uses for machine learning in universities?
Oh, definitely. While this study focused on Facebook image engagement, the potential applications are much broader. Think about enrollment management predicting which applicants are most likely to succeed.
Okay,
Or
yeah.
curriculum design, analyzing what skills are in demand. Personalized learning paths for students based on their progress and needs. Even optimizing campus operations like energy use or resource allocation. The potential is huge.
It sounds like it could really touch almost every part of how a university operates.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. If you had to boil down the main takeaways from this deep dive into the research, what would they be?
I'd say three things stand out. First, the sheer power of visual cues, color, emotion, objects, and driving engagement, and how subtly they work.
Right, understanding that visual language.
Second, the potential of machine learning, not as magic, but as a practical tool to analyze complex data, predict outcomes, and help make smarter decisions in marketing and potentially beyond.
Using data to refine strategy.
And third, the critical importance of context, especially cultural context. What works visually in one country or for one audience might not work the same way elsewhere. That nuance is key for global institutions.
Absolutely. It's not just about what the university puts out. It's about how the intended audience actually perceives and reacts to it. This has been a fantastic shortcut, really, to understanding some crucial factors for effective higher ed marketing today.
Glad we could dive into it.
So here's a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. How might these insights about predicting Facebook image engagement translate to newer, maybe more immersive visual platforms? Think VR, AR, whatever comes next. What entirely new types of data might become the key indicators of engagement in the future?
That's a great question to ponder. It's a constantly evolving field.
Definitely something to think about.
And of course, we'd encourage you, if this sparked your interest, to check out the source book for the full details. Or just think about how these principles might apply in your own area, whether that's higher education, marketing, or just navigating the online world.